So the way some of the fanbase criticises some players and defends others is completely inconsistent. On one hand, you'll have people criticising players like Bruno and Dalot for one or two mistakes and an overall pretty good display, and then on the other hand, they'll use one example of Hojlund making a run and not receiving an early cross as evidence for the fact that Hojlund's performance level is just simply down to his teammates not creating enough chances for him. When in reality, if you watch the game against Real Sociedad, or really any of the games throughout the last 3 to 4 months, you'll see not only is his movement to create his own space for chances pretty basic at best, but also a lot of attacks do break down because of his inability to not just link play efficiently like Zirkzee, but sometimes just retain possession in any sort of fashion. And I'm going to show you one example now. But before I do, a quick reminder, if you do want to check out any cheap, good quality football jerseys, go over to dragonjersey.com. They've got a variety of different current season and retro jerseys, and we'll have the 25-26 new season jerseys when they do come out in the summer. Depending on where you live, you can get 7 to 12 day delivery time as well as a 30-day money back guarantee. You can also use code Atlantis at checkout for a 10% discount for a limited time, and you can also get in contact to check any information before you buy. They have got their WhatsApp and their email on the site, so if you do want to check it out, I'll leave it linked in the description and comment section below, and remember to use code Atlantis at checkout for a 10% discount. So here we see United have the ball with Mazraoui on the left side, and because Sociedad are using a 4-4-2, the front two have shifted over to Mazraoui's side, leaving space on the far right side where Euro is positioned. United work the ball out to Euro via De Ligt, and as Euro receives possession, you can see that the Sociedad left-sided midfielder has now pushed up to apply pressure, with United currently sitting in what in this phase of play resembles a lopsided 3-2-2-3 shape, because of course the play is on the right side, with Bruno Fernandes not sitting alongside Casemiro in a double pivot, but instead sitting slightly more advanced. Now you could argue that this isn't optimal and United didn't need to go this wide. Euro maybe could have received the ball in a bit more of a central position, as now at this point it does seem like Euro has been penned in and his only passing option available is Casemiro in field, which isn't a massive issue, but because Bruno Fernandes is sitting directly ahead of Casemiro in a vertical line, this does mean that you'd expect Casemiro to have to use Dalot as effectively a wall pass to bounce the ball into Fernandes. But to be fair, this is some excellent one-touch play from Casemiro and Bruno Fernandes to play through the centre, with 2 first-time passes around the corner to work the ball into Alejandro Garnacho, proving that the players are technically good enough to play through the centre of the pitch. And the bigger issue is actually creating the passing angles and then intentionally playing through the centre, which is partly down to Amorim's possession setup at times, which can leave spaces between central players that are just too big, and the players between the lines are often standing there statically in space, making it easy for them to be marked rather than dynamically moving into the space to then receive the ball. But it's also down to personnel as well, as I often feel Ugarte doesn't move enough in order to open up these passing lanes, instead sitting behind the opposition's forward line, whilst players like Maguire, Casemiro and Eriksen, when they play in those central positions, they don't really have the mobility or the speed across shorter distances to open up passing lanes for the likes of Onana, the 3 centre-backs and the wing-backs as well. But I don't see it being a major issue compared with how United link play in the middle third with the forward line, if Zirkzee isn't the one receiving the ball to feet. Because now when Garnacho receives possession, I think United would benefit a lot more from having a centre forward in Hojlund's position in this phase of play, who rather than holding a static position alongside the 2 centre backs, instead in Zirkzee fashion drops off 5 yards into this space, opening up the passing lane in field for Garnacho to bounce the ball back inside, while simultaneously either giving himself 5 yards of space to receive the ball and drive into if the centre-back doesn't follow his deeper movement, or alternatively drags the centre-back out of the back line, opening up space centrally for the interior forward on the left of the front 3 in the half space, Zirkzee in this situation, to use their pace to make an arcing run ahead of the centre forward's deeper movement, looking to receive a through ball once Garnacho bounces the ball back inside to the centre forward, potentially opening up the opportunity for a 1v1 if the control, through ball and the run are all timed well. However, because Hojlund doesn't drop off to open up the passing lane for Garnacho, he doesn't have the option of a first time bounce pass back inside, and so he's forced to take too many touches and ends up getting pushed backwards, with the Sociedad midfield now able to get back goal side. Now you may say that this isn't Hojlund's game, and that what he offers aside in terms of ball progression is his movement in behind the back line, looking for more direct passes, but the issue with this is that even when United do use this avenue of progression, Hojlund's hold-up play sees the attack break down then as well, and we see it within this same move. Euro has the ball back at square one, with Real Sociedad able to get back behind the ball in their defensive shape, but because Amorim likes to have his wing-backs holding deeper positions on the flanks when the ball is on their side, they are always a passing option wide for the centre-back on that side, sitting wide of the opposition's left-sided midfielder, and so Euro is able to feed the pass into Dalot, who can now look for Hojlund's run in behind the high back line, either arced in front of the left-sided centre-back to allow him to run into the channel, or off his blind side either into a central position or diagonal into the channel. And Hojlund's pace and Dalot's pass allows Hojlund to get into the final third, but the issue is that when United progress the ball down the channel, whilst Hojlund has the pace to run in behind, United don't have the pace in central positions in order to keep up with the attack and look to burst into positions to receive an early cross. And this isn't really a criticism of Zirkzee, as pace just isn't part of his skill set. And so alongside having Zirkzee more involved with ball progression through both sides rather than just the left side, this is another reason as to why I want Zirkzee playing centrally, and not from the left of a front three, as I want him being the player who's dropping off to link play between the lines, not the interior forward who needs to be able to use their pace in order to break into goal scoring positions, either when the centre forward drops off and opens up the space, or in this example when the centre forward runs in behind and receives a direct pass into the channel. But even if you swap out Zirkzee for someone like Garnacho, Rashford, Ekitike, Nkunku, Cunha, whoever it was, most of the time Hojlund isn't going to be able to pick them out with an early cross, particularly on his right foot. But even still, we've progressed the ball into the final third, and so rather than looking to create an early chance, we can look to sustain possession and create from more settled possession in the opposition's half. However, Hojlund seems to be unable to handle any sort of physical battle without clunking and bumping around as he tries to maintain his footing like a deer on ice, and when he does eventually play the ball back to Dalot, it's a very simple pass which he misdirects, leading to the attack breaking down. And that's the issue with United's forward line. Because of the lack of options that Amorim has, he has to use Zirkzee and Hojlund together. But I just don't think they work stylistically, as Zirkzee benefits more from being the centre forward starting high alongside the centre backs and then dropping into the space in behind the opposition's midfield line to receive the ball, and having runners from out wide and in deeper positions making movements ahead of his deeper movement. And Hojlund as well, because most of the time he's looking to spin into the channels and get in behind, he needs interior forwards on either side who can keep pace with him in the attack and provide the movement of a centre forward through the centre of the pitch when he's pulled out wide. And a good example of a very stylistically balanced forward line is the Manchester United under-18s team. But before I go any further, a quick reminder, I do have a Patreon where I do release articles on kind of niche topics, so if you want to check that out, you can get a 7-day free trial, and you can also sign up for my in-game Instagram group chat. I'll leave it linked in all the usual places, the eye above, description, comment section, and on the end screen after the video. So I think this clip from the Manchester United under-18s FA Youth Cup game against Arsenal exemplifies the quality in the United youth ranks. Centre-back Daniel Armour has possession, and you can see that Jack Fletcher has dropped from the midfield line to the edge of the box, creating the same sort of diamond shape that we see Amorim's first team picking up in the build-up phase. Max Darwin applies pressure for Arsenal as he cuts off the passing lane infield into Jacob Devaney, but what really impressed me about Armour in this particular game was his willingness to play these incisive passes, splitting the Arsenal midfield with a pass inside the Arsenal right-sided midfielder into the feet of Tyler Fletcher. And Fletcher shows his press resistance here as he first is aware of Ibrahim pushing up onto his back, and so he doesn't just control the ball statically but instead takes a first touch backwards towards Armour, which works to hold off Ibrahim's pressure but also give him the space to turn, where from now we can start to see the effect of Arsenal's man-to-man press, as now you have Harry Amas, United's left back, and Gabriel Biancheri isolated against the two Arsenal players on this side as they look to run off their back, but specifically look at Biancheri's movement, as initially he looks like he's going to drop into a deeper position, but he realises that this would close off the passing lane up the line into Amas, and so instead he spins and drives infield into the space that his movement initially created in behind the midfield line, which Musa ahead also helps to create by arcing his run over to the left side, dragging the centre-back deeper and away from the area that Biancheri wants to run into, and Tyler Fletcher gets the weight, direction and timing of his path perfect to roll it into the path of Biancheri, and just like we just saw from Musa, we now see a facilitating run on the other side from James Scanlon, as rather than just making a vertical run in behind the Arsenal left back, instead Scanlon has the awareness to recognise Camerson's overlapping run on his outside, and so makes a diagonal run between the left back and left sided centre back, dragging the left back in field and opening up the passing lane for Biancheri to find Camerson, and credit to Camerson for having the athleticism and the awareness to see the opportunity and race off the back of the Arsenal left-sided midfielder, and he gets himself into a high value chance creating position. But this is where hopefully his game will develop, as from this position, I think the optimal decision would be to look for a low driven shot across the box, aiming for the far corner, with Scanlon's diagonal movement from out to in, now allowing him to take up a centre forward like position inside of the box, ready for anything across the 6-yard box, with Musa also coming in at the back post. And you've also got Biancheri, who's continued his run after the initial pass out to Camerson, taking up a position in that Wayne Rooney area on the edge of the Arsenal box, looking for the sort of cutback that we saw Nani provide Rooney back in the 09-010 season. Jayden Camerson goes for goal, and it isn't a horrific effort. He certainly gets a clean enough connection and the right power, but the direction is wayward. But even still, there were multiple impressive aspects throughout this move. Daniel Walmer's initial incisive pass between the lines into Jack Fletcher, Fletcher's initial press resistance and then the ball carrying into Arsenal's half, Biancheri's checked run and subsequent drive into the space, followed by the switch out to Camerson, with the initial space being created by Musa and Scanlon's well-timed facilitating movements, as well as Camerson's drive down the right, and even all three of Scanlon, Musa and Biancheri following up the attack and getting themselves into positions where if the pass was right, they could receive a high value goal scoring opportunity. And so this is a reason as to why I think Ruben Amorim should consider promoting James Scanlon to the first team, not necessarily because I think he's the most talented under-18s player. I don't think he's on the same level as the likes of Sekou Kone, Kokonki, or maybe even Jack or Tyler Fletcher, but because of what he offers in terms of stylistics. That facilitating run that he made to open up the space for Camerson could also be used to move ahead of Zirkzee to get into goal scoring positions himself. And so from a stylistic point of view, I think James Scanlon would be a good option for Ruben Amorim if he does want to continue using that front three, because he can provide the movement and pace from central positions that can not only work to facilitate opening up movement for the wing back on the outside, but also provide the counter forward movement ahead of Zirkzee's deeper movement that I think the United attack needs. So let me know what you think of potentially using James Scanlon in the front three, and if you do want to check out any cheap good quality football jerseys, go over to dragonjersey.com. You can use code Atlantis at checkout for a 10% discount, and if you do want to sign up to my Patreon to read any of my articles or sign up for the in-game Instagram group chat, I'll leave that linked on the end screen with another video now as well.